This is Tushar Kole. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the file operations in Python. Let me open a new Jupyter notebook, Python 3, new Python 3. Let me rename it to file. So the file operations, entire file operations can be done in Python just with the help of a single function. It's called open. Okay. So this is a function. This is a built-in function. That means you don't have to import any library. It's readily available for you, and we can do all these file operations just by using these simple built-in functions. If that's not enough, there are even better libraries like pandas and all, where you can basically read specific files, Excel, CSV. We're going to learn about pandas later on, but let's just focus on the simple file operations in today's. Okay, let's try to understand what is this open function is capable of doing. So what we can do is we can just type help, okay, and then open and close bracket and give this function open. So that will give you the documentation of the functions, open function. So here, as you know, as you can imagine, there could be two types of files. One is binary type files, for example, image, videos, and all this kind of audio, this kind of files. And another one is text files, where you can write down the content in it. Now, in this open function, if you see this open function, actually, this is the documentation. It says it takes multiple arguments. The first argument is the file name, or it could be the full path of your file name. If you just give the file name, it will create a file in your current directory. Otherwise, it will create the file in the specific locations. Now, next one is mode. Mode default is R for read, and then you have write and other things. These are buffering, encoding. Encoding, you can use any type of encoding like UTF-8, etc. Then errors, how you can handle errors, new lines, close FT, etc. So if you just scroll down a little bit, here it is just explaining you all of this mode. So you have this many modes available: read, write, executable, append, binary, text, etc. Now by default it says read, default mode is read, and T for text. Then if you do like RB, this is read binary. If you do WB, that means write binary, like that. Okay, and if you give plus in it, that means it will give you both read and write operations. Okay, so now let's do some hands-on to try to understand this concept even better. Okay, so what I can do is, let's say I try to open a file in a read mode, and I know that file doesn't exist. Okay, actually before that you can do one thing. If you just type present working directory, pwd, enter, you see this is where it just gives you the location. Now if you want to do ls, okay, now you see in my current directory I have only these three files. I have class.notebook, IPONB, exception, and file, this file.notebook which we just created, file notebook we just created. This file does not exist to read. So if you just try it, you see it's giving error, file not found error, which is expected. Now what we can do is, instead we can try to open this file as a write mode. So if I just do it, now it did not give me error. Now it creates a file handle. Okay, you can assign this in a variable, any variable. Okay, let's say you could use just simple app or file1 or anything. Now you have this file handle. Okay, now let's write some text into this. So what I can do is, because let me copy this text. Let me create a string object for all this text, and I want to write the entire content of this documentation in this file. How I can do it? Let me define a string variable. Let's say str1. This is my string variable. Now, because it already has new lines and all, what I can do, I can use 3 quotes and hit enter. Then I can paste the entire content in it. Then if I just do string enter, it has created the string variable. If you want to check the content of the string1 variable, so you see now it has created a content, and wherever you have new line, it has created carriage return, new line, etc. So the string variable now contains this documentations, okay, this whole thing. Now let me write it inside this file. Okay, so what we can do is, let me now do f.write. Okay, if you just do f.write, okay, I'm sorry, if dot write, then string 1, we just do it. Now it wrote this file and it also printed you how many characters it wrote into this file. Okay, now what I can do, I can just close this file. Okay, f dot close. So I have closed this file. Now if I just do ls in my current directory, you see now this new file appeared because I just wrote this file. Okay, now let's try to read this file. Okay, I'll just say f1 is equal to, again open. Now if I try the same command like test1.txt, now I should be able to get this, I should be able to open this file in a read mode. Okay, this time it did not give you any error. If you just go back here, you see we exactly tried the same thing and it gave you an error. Okay, but this time it did not give you, okay, so this time it did not give me any error. Now let me try to read the content of this file. How can I do it? I can just type f1.read. Okay, if I just do it, so this is by default will try to read the entire content of it. If you just do space, it says size is equal to -1. That's the default value, which means read everything. Now, okay, if you want to read only specific characters, you can mention it. For example, you can mention 100, then it will read only 100. Okay, let's try that. So it just read only 100 characters of it. Now one thing you have to keep in mind in that, okay, when you open a file, there's a cursor, built-in cursor, and the cursor starts from position 0. Then when you already read 100, okay, then if you try to read another 100, okay, that will not be same thing. So that means it's not going to read again from the beginning. It is going to read from the next, it is going to read the next 100 characters. Okay, now you see these are different values. And what happens if I don't pass anything? Let's see. So it reads entire content. Okay, now think about it. It read the entire content. Now if you try to read it again, what will happen? If you try to read it again, you see you don't find anything because it already read. Cursor was already at the end when you ran this particular command. Now because it already read everything, now there's nothing else to read, so you got empty value. Now you might be asking, okay, what if I want to go back? I want to go back, read from the beginning. Yeah, there is an option for that too. One option, obviously you could reopen the file, but that's not a good idea. So what you can do is, every file handle has a specific function called seek. Okay, we just do f1.seek position 0. That means it will go back in the position 0. Okay, now if we try to read, let's see what happens. Okay, let me read 100 characters now. See, it has gone back. So this is how you can go back and forth to read the content of your file. Now let's try to see one example. I think we have seen the example of write and read. Now let's say I want to create, but yeah, so before that you can do one more thing. You can just close, you should close every file. And if you don't want to do it yourself, there is another way. What you can do is, instead you can do all these operations like with if as open. Okay, I'll give my file name. Let's yeah, this is test1.txt. Then I can do all the operations that I want to do. f.read. Okay, I think it's the other way around. With open test.txt as f.read. Okay. Now if I just assign this value into one file, then let's see the content. Okay. Yeah. So basically this is the syntax. With open file name as file handle, then do the rest of the operation, assign the value. And in this approach, the advantage in this approach is you don't have to explicitly close it. If you forget to close the file, then this will take care of that itself. Okay. Now let's try to do one other thing. Okay, let's say I'm trying to open again the same file. Okay, and this time I try to open it as a X or exclusive mode. Okay, so what will happen if I try to do it? This should actually give you an error telling that okay, the file already exists. Okay, you see it's given error, file exist error. Now what happens if I just, instead of X, I do it W, that means as a write mode instead of exclusive mode. So this time, see, it didn't give me any error. Okay, now if I just assign this file handle, then if I just f dot right. Let me write just test. Okay, see, it wrote just test, just 4 letters. Now I can do f.close. I can just close it, and let me try to open it again. F is equal to open test1.text. okay, and then if I just do f.read, do you notice it just gives you only the test value? See, before I open it as write mode, this test1.text has lot of content, but because I wrote it as W, this is by default. Basically it will overwrite the default, it will override the existing content. That's why the entire file content is just now only the test. It's not going, it just removed everything. Okay, now let's say you don't want that. Okay, you just want to open the file and keep on writing into it. That's the typical use case you will have. In that case, what we'll do is there is another mode called append mode. So instead of W, so if you already have the file, you already have some content in it, and you want to just keep on writing into it. Okay, how you can do it? You should use the append mode in that case, because if you use W, then it will overwrite. If you use exclusive X, it will give you error telling that file already exists. In this scenario, actually you have to do, let me just close this. In this scenario, what you have to do, you have to open in append mode. So let's try that. Now I'll just do, by the way, it doesn't have to be F, you can use any variable. I'm just using F for a convenience. It doesn't have to be that. It should not be like that. You should have a meaningful name. Okay, now here I'll just open it as append mode this time. Okay. Then what I'll do, I'll just write, add some space, just say more text in it. Then I'll just close the file. Okay, now let me open this file again. Open just a text. Okay, if I just open it, now I just read the content. So test more text in it. So now you get the point. So basically that's where you need all this mode. Basically you need read, write, exclusive, and the append mode. Depending on the situations, you might want to use it for different cases. Now there is another, you might have seen there is another mode called binary. Instead of text, you can write binary. Let's take an example. Let's try to give an example of that as well. Okay, let's say I just open a new file. F is equal to open, then I'll just say test binary. Okay, then in dot anything you can use, let's just use, let's just use B. Okay, any extension you can use. Ideally it should not be text, because binary file do not contain text, but you can use it. There won't be any restrictions in that. Okay, fine, let me use this as text. Now instead of, I'm just trying to open it to write something, so therefore my first character should be W. Next one, I just try to open it as a binary, so next character will be binary. So I have just opened it. Now what I can do is I can just write some content in it. So here in binary, if you just try to write some sample text, let's see what happens. So you see it's giving an error because you open it as binary mode. Python is expecting you to give you some bytes, not the plain text. So that means you have to convert this text into binary before you can pass it. The way you can do it, you can just pass like B, and that will convert this text into binary, and it should be able to write. So it wrote. Now we can close this. Okay, now let's try to read this binary file. Okay, let me use, okay, same name, no problem. Now let me open. Now the file name test binary.txt. It will be default read mode. Now if you just try to do f.read, see it is able to successfully read it, and it is reading it and also automatically converting it into string. Okay, now if we just look into our current directory, you see there is two new files. One is test1.txt and another one is testbinary.txt. If you want to remove them, how can you do it is you can import a special library called OS. Okay, let's say you're done with it. Now you want to delete this file. Unfortunately, this cannot be done with just the open function. So I'm just taking help of another library called OS, and then just do os.remove. Okay, os.remove, and give the file name test1.txt. Now if you just type ls, now you see one file has been removed already. Now do the same thing for the other file as well. So remove test binary.txt. Okay, now if you do ls, yeah, all the files are gone. Okay, so I think that's it for today's session, and next session we'll try to look into some other subjects. And I hope you like my video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching.